I had a concerned mom ask me the other day during an evaluation if I thought her little one was autistic. I was there evaluating the child, along with a speech therapist, and the kiddo was referred for a possible speech delay. This is not the norm, as most parents just don't come right out and ask if their child has autism. However, we were able to answer her questions, and I wanted to cover the topic here as well. So today, I'm going to show you some examples that may help you determine the difference between normal, age-appropriate behavior and early signs of autism. So let's talk about the elephant in the room, autism. How do I know this is a topic that parents avoid talking about like the plague? Because I've been in your homes, I've sat on your couches and at your dining room tables as you dance around the word autism. Unlike the mom I described just a few minutes ago, most moms come up with every possible way to let me know that you have concerns with autism without actually saying the word. As a pediatric developmental therapist, it is my job to come into your home and be as transparent as possible. Although I cannot diagnose autism, that is the job of a developmental pediatrician. I can definitely pinpoint red flags and refer your child to get that diagnostic screening completed. And to take it a step further, sometimes the referral to early intervention is actually made by you, the parent. So before even coming into your home, I know that autism is on your radar. It will usually read something like possible speech delay with autism concerns or sensory concerns with possible autism. Although, even in this case, sometimes it's still the same situation. You dance around with your words without actually saying the word autism. It's almost like if you say the word, you will speak it into existence. But I 100% understand, because this can be a scary place to be in. As moms, all we want to do is protect our children. But when we find out that our little one might have a developmental delay, there are so many things that go through our minds. Really quickly, before I move on, I want to reiterate something that I just mentioned. I said that sometimes the referral to the early intervention program comes from you, the parent. I want to tell you right here and right now that you as a parent can refer your child to the early intervention program. If you are waiting on the pediatrician to make the referral, be reassured that you can actually call yourself. Now, the process to make the referral is quite simple. It's literally just a phone call and answering some questions. So please make sure you stay till the end, and I will show you how to find the early intervention in your state. Keep in mind, early intervention is ages birth to 3. And if you want to know more about the early intervention process, I will have a link to that video below in the description. So we have a lot to discuss today. So let's go ahead and dive right in. As we go over the differences between normal age-appropriate behavior and early signs of autism, I'm going to break this up into 3 age groups: 12 months, 18 months, and 24 months. So let's first look at a 12-month-old. By 12 months old, your child might be saying 1 to 3 words. It is fairly common for a 12-month-old to at least be saying mama and dada meaningfully. Now, typically, most little ones say their first word between 10 and 14 months. So if your child hasn't said their first word yet, there's really no reason to panic. If your child is 12 months and you haven't heard their first word, you should be at least hearing a lot of babbling. What we don't want at 12 months old is not to hear babbling. If your child is waking up from a nap, you will oftentimes hear them verbalizing and talking to themselves in their cribs. Now, at 12 months, your child should also turn and look at you when you call their name. If they don't turn and look at you even after their name is repeated several times, this may or may not raise concern. Now, I'm not talking about if your child is engrossed in a movie or highly focused on a book. During those times of focused play, your child may not turn to look at you. However, even with typical development, they should eventually look up to see what you want, especially if you are calling their name over and over again. So here's a tip for you. Find a time when your child isn't focused on something. Maybe catch them when they are walking or crawling from the living room to the kitchen, or sitting in front of you in the cart at the grocery store, and say their name. If they don't turn to look, repeat the steps a few more times and see if you can get their attention. At this point, we don't want any gestural commands to be given, meaning don't tap them on the shoulder, touch their arm, etc. Just give a verbal command. Just to recap, at 12 months old, we like to hear at least 1 to 3 words, and your little one responding when their name is called. So next, let's look at an 18-month-old. In this section alone, I am going to give you 3 scenarios: a typically developing 18-month-old, an 18-month-old that has a speech delay, and an 18-month-old that is exhibiting signs of autism. Now, a typically developing 18-month-old should be saying around 15 to 20 words. But also keep in mind that not all children develop at the same pace. If your child is 18 months and is saying more than 20 words, that's excellent. If your child is saying less than 15 words at this age, your child may or may not have a language delay. So many factors go into language delays than just the amount of words a child is saying. So this leads me to my next scenario. An 18-month-old with a language delay may not be saying 15 to 20 words, but will point, gesture, or use facial expressions to make up for their lack of language use. Remember that possible speech delay I mentioned earlier, and how I said that so many different factors play a role? It's true that by 18 months, your child should be saying at least 15 to 20 words and also imitating sounds and words. But imitation is actually a precursor of language development. So if your child isn't saying 15 words yet, but they are imitating like crazy, they may be getting ready for a language explosion. So make sure you're prepared. The third scenario is an 18-month-old who is exhibiting signs of autism. Now, in this case, they might not make any attempt at all to compensate for delayed speech, meaning that they won't use symbolic gestures such as showing you something or pointing out objects of interest, or their speech might be limited to repeating what they hear on TV or what they just heard you say. We call this echolalia. This is the repetition of another person's spoken words, phrases, and sentences. Now, I will provide a link in the description below of an example of a toddler using echolalia for you to reference later. I also want you to pay attention to the stimming that he is doing in this video. Stimming is a behavior consisting of repetitive actions and movements. So just to recap this section, a typically developing 18-month-old should be saying approximately 15 to 20 words. An 18-month-old that is not saying 15 to 20 words will oftentimes point, gesture, and use facial expressions to make up for their lack of language use, and they will also be imitating the words they hear. And an 18-month-old who is exhibiting possible signs of autism will have very limited words or none at all, make no attempt to compensate for delayed speech, and might use echolalia. Now let's take a look at a 24-month-old. Your little one is now 2 years old. It's crazy how fast time flies. At 24 months, your child is doing a lot of different things, and I won't be able to cover all of it in this video. But to stick to our main topic, which is being able to identify the difference between normal age-appropriate behavior and early signs of autism, I want to ask you a question. Does your child bring you a book that he or she is looking at to show you the pictures in the book? Is your child looking at your face or in your eyes, pointing in the book, possibly sharing back and forth laughter and joy while you look at the book together? Is that interaction and connection there? Or does your child bring you a bottle of bubbles to open, but they do not look at your face or eyes and don't share the pleasure of playing together with the bubbles? They just want the bottle of bubbles open. At this age, I often hear parents of autistic kids tell me that the connection piece is missing. They might want you to open the bottle of bubbles or open the new package of puzzles, but they don't necessarily want you involved with them during the activity or in their play space. Here are a couple other red flags that you might want to consider at 24 months. Your child has a very limited vocabulary. At 24 months, your child should be saying at least 50 to 270 words. Now, I know that is a fairly big range, but they should also be putting 2 words together, like let's go, no don't, hi mama, etc. And they are beginning to imitate some 3-word phrases such as let's go mama. So again, all children develop at different times, but there are developmental markers that we need to keep in mind. And around 24 months, your child should be saying at least 50 words. Just because your child isn't saying 50 words, does it automatically mean that they have autism? No, not at all. but it does mean that there is a possible speech delay. And if your child is under the age of 3, you might want to reach out to the early intervention program to get that evaluation process started. At least just see if they qualify and if there is a delay. So since we can't define autism necessarily just by how many words your child is saying, let's go ahead and look at a few more red flags in this area. An autistic child tends to not use gestures, doesn't point, and carries around specific objects for extended periods of time. For example, I once evaluated the sweetest little girl, and her main focus was paper. Her parents reported that she had to have this paper all day and carry it around with her, or she would become very, very upset. We tried taking away the paper during the evaluation so we could get her to do some of the activities that we had for her, but she did become very, very upset and was not interested in anything that we had to offer. She just wanted her paper. Some other red flags to look out for are talking or babbling in an unusual tone or not playing purposely with toys. Just last week, I went into a family's home of a 26-month-old, and that sweet little boy was saying only 4 words. He had a humming sound that he made the entire time we were there, and he did not walk over to us to participate in our play space that we had set up for him. And yes, we did recommend a referral for a diagnostic test with a developmental pediatrician for that little guy. Now, remember, there is a whole process that comes into play when it comes to diagnosing your child with autism. When the therapist and I go into a home of a child with suspected autism, it is usually myself, the developmental therapist, a speech therapist, as well as an occupational therapist. Oftentimes, you will see sensory processing issues in children that have autism. That is why it's beneficial for the occupational therapist to come in and evaluate your child as well. I know this was a lot of information to digest, so let's do a quick recap. At 12 months old, your child should be saying 1 to 3 words. This will include simple words such as mama, dada, bye, no, and those famous exclamatory terms like uh-oh. And they will also turn to look at you when you call their name. An 18-month-old should be saying around 15 to 20 words. If there is a speech delay involved, they might be trying to compensate for that delayed speech by pointing, gesturing, or using certain facial expressions to get their wants and needs across. Think of it this way. They are communicating without verbally communicating. They are still trying to get your attention by taking your hand and pulling you to the pantry or fridge to let you know they are hungry, or pointing to something they want, but are actually unable to verbally express it to you. An 18-month-old that is exhibiting red flags for autism might make no attempt to compensate for delayed speech at all. And at 24 months, you might see very limited language skills and no joy or pleasure in playing with a preferred activity with you. Sometimes they have a very difficult time allowing others into their play spaces. Some kids get very upset when others just get up and walk away. Limited or no eye contact should also be noted as a red flag, and not responding when their name is called. I've had several parents tell me that it almost feels like their child is just going through the motions, playing on their own for long periods of time, just wandering around the house. And most of the time, you won't see purposeful play, such as building blocks, completing puzzles, or pretend play. You will see mostly toy throwing or focusing on one thing, such as stacking blocks and knocking them down in a repetitive manner. As I said before, child development is complex. It really is. But there is a baseline of what a child should be doing and when. As a developmental therapist, it is my job to see if these kiddos are meeting those markers and to see what type of delay they are showing. A mild delay, moderate, or significant. And the testing tool that I used helps me to determine that. Moving forward, we have a lot to dissect when it comes to child development. If there is a video topic that you would like for me to do, please comment below and let me know. And as I promised, I have a link in the description below of the early intervention to your state. Now remember, you as a parent can refer. You don't have to wait for a pediatrician's referral. And if your child is between the ages of birth and 36 months, and you would like access to me, a pediatric developmental therapist, on a daily basis, I would love for you to consider joining the Milestone Mom Academy. That link is also in the description below. Remember, I appreciate you, and I will see you in the next video.